Hey guys, it's Panther, and today I wanted to go over some of the changes that caused Galio to move into the support role from the mid lane role. But first, before we do that, I would like to ask you to like the video and subscribe. We post new content by challenger players every day. Now without further ado, let's get into this new build that we're seeing on support Galio. Before we get into any runes or skill orders, I'd like to explain when you do and don't want to pick Galio. You see, Galio is a fantastic frontliner, however, he can be melted by a team that's overly physical damage oriented. So if you see a team or a bot lane specifically that is very physical damage heavy, for example, a Draven paired with a Janna support, you might want to avoid picking Galio in that specific lane. Conversely, he is very good into heavy magic damage bot lanes. This means if you see something like Heimerdinger paired with another mage bot lane, or a Kai'Sa or Kog'Maw paired with a mage support or an enchanter support, Galio is a fantastic pick then. He exceeds in soaking magic damage and CCing enemy targets. Now, the runes are pretty similar to mid lane Galio. We like to take Aftershock, Demolish, Bone Plating or Conditioning, and Unflinching in our primary tree. Now for the secondary tree, it's a little bit different. We're going to be running Inspiration, and we want Magical Footwear and Biscuit Delivery. Now, Hex Flash is an option, however, I would not recommend it as you cannot combo it well with your W, and it's just overall much better to be taking Magical Footwear. If you do want to try Hex Flash on support Galio, that is entirely up to you, but just know that most people prefer Magical Footwear, and it's most likely the better option here. Your rune shards, as always, should be catered to the specific game, so take whichever resists that you need and scaling CDR. Now, while the runes may have looked pretty familiar to you, here's where things start changing up. Our skill order is a little bit different. You will start with Q level 1, then take W at level 2, and E at level 3. However, you max W first and your E second. The reason that we don't max Q first while supporting is because we don't really gain much benefit if you don't have very much AP, and it eats a lot of mana. Your W will also give you additional damage reduction when you level it, and will allow you to survive a lot better in the laning phase and in team fights later into the game. Similarly, we max E second just because we don't have a lot of AP, so our Qs are not really going to be doing all that much, and we want to be able to output as much CC as possible. That's the main goal here. CC the enemy for as long as you can. You're not really a poke-based champion, so your Qs aren't all too useful, and a lot of the time they will just be wasting mana. Now, with this being said, our Q is not entirely useless. The main reason that we want to be using our Q is to charge our passive. Every time you hit an enemy with one of your abilities, it lowers the cooldown on your passive by 4. And if you hit 2 enemies with one ability, then it automatically brings your passive up no matter what. So just try to keep in mind, don't look to poke your enemies too much with your Q. Just try and use it to charge your passive, and try not to eat too much mana because it does cost a lot. Now that we have runes and skill order out of the way, we can get into the real spicy stuff. Support Galio has one of the coolest builds in the entire game, in my opinion, and I think you'll agree with me once you see what items he's building and why. Now, the first 2 items that he always finishes are Remnant of the Aspect and Finished Boots. You can either go Merc Treads, Ninja Tabby, Mobility Boots, whichever you prefer. The reason that you do this is for more survivability out of either Tabby or Merc Treads, or be able to move across the map faster with Moby Boots. The reason you finish Remnant of the Aspect is it has very good stats on it, and it also allows you to store an extra charge, which in turn will allow you to generate more gold off of your support item. Now, past this point, pro players are actually pretty split on what they like to take. However, the most common item that we're seeing next is Redemption. You might be thinking, Redemption? That's kind of weird. Galio doesn't have any heals or shields in his kit. The reason that you purchase Redemption on Galio is because his CC chain is so long that you will guaranteed get the damage on the enemy team while still healing you, because you're going to be taking damage while you're taunting enemy champions. And it will also work with your W's passive, believe it or not. However, that's not the reason we're taking it. Usually you want to get in there, drop your Redemption as soon as you land your taunt, auto, E, Q, auto, and your redemption will land, and it is just a huge amount of burst. It makes it a lot easier to kill people, and it just chains together so well with your CC. That's the reason people are rushing redemption at the moment, for damage, and to keep yourself topped off as well. Keep in mind, redemption can still be used traditionally, like any other enchanter would use redemption as well. You can just use it to heal your allies. You don't need to use it for damage either. However, it is always an option to use it for a little bit of additional burst, since you just lack a tiny bit of damage in order to 100 to 0 pretty much any champion that resides in the bot lane. Now, after redemption, most people will rush either a Zeke's Convergence or a Knight's Vow. They like to link with their ADC and just empower their ADC with one of these two linking items. If the ADC is taking a lot of damage, then Knight's Vow is a very good way to go. However, if the ADC is not really worried about damage and you're just worried about outputting as much as possible, then Zeke's Convergence is also very good. Another upside to Zeke's Convergence is you don't really need Knight's Vow as much if you build it, because you are going to be ulting on top of your ADC a lot of the time. You can use it to ult onto different people, however, most of the time you're going to want to be saving it to peel for your carries, as opposed to using it to dive in. You want to stay close to your carry and empower them as much as you can as Galio. Keep them alive, you have very, very good peel on this champion. Later on into the game, you're going to be wanting to look for a Locket of the Iron Solari. Now this item scales very, very well with HP, which in turn makes it very good on tank supports. It also has a level scaling, so later on into the game when you have a lot of HP and you have a few levels, you're going to be seeing a pretty large shield out of Locket. Locket also works really well when paired with Redemption, due to Locket blocking the incoming damage while the Redemption is priming. The shield bonus from Redemption also works on Locket as well. Now that you know the build order and the runes that you should be taking on Galio, I'd like to just give you a few different tips for Galio specifically on support. One of the few things that is pretty unique to Galio is his E, his dash, has a wind up at the beginning of it, where he will step back. However, you can negate this step back before dashing forward if you position your back to a wall. This will allow you to completely avoid the long wind up time and be able to kind of catch your enemies by surprise. Getting a pink ward and sitting inside of a brush outside of vision is also very, very strong as Galio. The reason this is so good on Galio is because he is able to stand inside of the brush while charging his W, which will allow him to flash outside of the brush, release his W, and taunt whoever's in range. This can lead to a lot of kills, especially early on into the game, or later on into the game you can use it to death rush the enemy team, CCing potentially an entire team. Another thing unique to Galio that you don't see on any other support champions is his passive is AoE, so if you auto attack one minion, it's going to hit the minions nearby that one. This means that if you're trying to prep a minion for your ADC under the tower, that it's likely going to just mess up all the CS, so be careful of that. Try not to use your passive on the ranged creeps if you need to prep them, because it will likely just ruin them, making it so that your ADC can't actually get those minions. Once you have level 6 on Galio, it's a very good play to roam with your jungler inside of the river. This is because you are able to ult to whatever lane you might need to ult to once you hit level 6. If the enemy team has a hard engage melee range support, for example, Alistar or Leona, you can also just use your ADC as bait and ult onto them as soon as they get engaged on. This is a very good play in the laning phase because it allows you to make fights happen that might not otherwise happen. This is a very risky play, however, so keep in mind that if they have a very bursty lane, that is not the way to go. You likely want to be standing in front of your ADC if that is the case. Another thing to keep in mind is that Galio's ultimate is a very long cooldown, so make sure you're making your ults count. Once you've cast your ult, you also can't cancel it, so make sure that you are really committed to ulting to a place before going there. Because if you make the decision to ult, you will go through with that ult unless you are CC'd before the ultimate cast goes off. Outside of laning phase, you want to be pinking brushes near objectives and using your flash W combo in order to make a play near those objectives. Alternatively, if the enemy team is doing an objective, then you can always look to W flash as many people as possible on the enemy team. Galio's AoE CC is huge, and when done properly, you can CC an entire team for up to a second and a half. It's very, very, very strong. That about does it for today's guide on support Galio. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. We post new content done by challenger players every single day. If you have any way for us to improve our videos or any ideas that you'd like to see in the future, make sure to let us know in a comment down below. As always, I hope you learned something valuable, and I'll see you in the next one.